Hey guys, Lee with LG Speed and Custom. In this video, we are going to slam this 47 Ford. This is Felipes' 1947 Ford Coupe. Felipe got a hold of me a couple months ago, I think it might have been during Deuce Days, and decided that he wanted to lower his 47 Ford. This car is all original, completely stock, still 6 volt. It should run, but it currently does not run. I think it's either got a battery issue or maybe just a ground issue. I cleaned the grounds, but it still doesn't want to go. So anyways, I gotta mess around with that a bit, but that doesn't matter for what we're doing. So he wanted to lower this car. Originally, we were gonna do a dropped axle. I was gonna take the original axle out and drop it in my dropped axle jig. And in the back, we were gonna make some extended shackles. At least I thought that was the plan until like an hour ago when Felipe dropped this car off and said, hey, I changed things a little bit. I hope you're okay with that. And then he popped the trunk and showed me all this. This is, as far as I know, because I haven't actually opened it yet, a complete independent front suspension. I think it's all from Speedway. Disc brakes as well, and a manual rack. For the back, we've got a full triangulated 4-link and rear cross member that we're gonna put in. So at first I was like, holy crap. Because I had booked this car in for I was thinking it would be here for a week. I was hoping to do the job in 3 days, but then that would give me some time. In case something went weird, I'd have a couple days extra. This is not a week job anymore. This is escalated into a fairly big job, which is a little bit stressful and totally different from the original plan of doing a dropped axle. But you know what? It's still gonna be a fun project. So first thing I'm gonna do right now is take the car from here and put it right there, and then we can start the teardown. Look at all this. There's quite a bit to a front suspension, isn't there? I've gone through all the boxes and we have almost everything. We are missing calipers, and these coilovers are missing the shocks and the upper little cup doodads that hold the shocks in place, and the lower ones too, I guess. Yeah, so we're missing part of the shocks and we're missing the calipers. There was a couple other parts boxes in here for, I think, a Mustang. So I'm hoping that Felipe's got those parts, and he's wondering, when he's working on his Mustang at home, why he doesn't have, it's like door striker pieces. I don't know. I'm assuming he's got the box that I need, and we've got the box that he needs. For the rear, I've quickly just kind of pieced together this 4-link kit just to make sure it's all there, and it looks good. It does have coilovers that need to be assembled. See, this is the pieces that we're missing for the other ones. So yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Before we jack this car up and start tearing it down, I'm gonna do what I always do, and we'll get some measurements, some base measurements, so that we know how high this car was in stock form. And that way when we're done, we know how much we lowered it. I just like to do that just out of curiosity. When you're at a car show or something and someone says, hey, how much did you lower your car? You can tell them, and it's not like, I don't know, because I didn't measure it before. So that's our next step. I've got some tape on the fender here, and I'm just gonna measure from the floor up and then mark it on the tape. So that line there is 28 inches. When we're done, hopefully this will be around like, I don't know, 22 inches, 20 inches, that'd be cool. I'm gonna do all 4 wheels. $28 on the back. You know, I just realized as I was marking this out, this car's a 46, because 46 has the signal lights up here, and 47 and 8 have the signal lights down there. And 46 has this like ribbed trim, as well as 46 has the stainless around the windows. So maybe it's registered as a 47. Also, 46 has the Ford script in the bumper. I noticed that earlier, and I just assumed that it had a 46 bumper on it, but yeah, it's got the red gauges too, which I think are 46. So maybe, yeah, and these lines, that's all 46. This is a 46 coupe. Although, like I said, it could just be registered as a 47 coupe. Sometimes on old cars, weird stuff like that happens. Let's go right there. $28.5 on this side. Now is this side slightly higher? Or did I put my tape in a different spot? Who knows? Last wheel. 29. It is also quite common on old cars for one side to be a little bit higher than the other. That happens all the time. All right, it's the next morning. Let's start tearing this thing down. So I just read through the instructions, because I've installed a lot of these front ends before, these IFS front ends. They're sometimes known as like a Mustang 2 front end, because that's what they were originally based off of. However, they've evolved and been modified so much that they have absolutely nothing in common with a Mustang 2 front end anymore. They've got 5-lug wheels, they've got bigger rotors, they've got tubular control arms. Most of them use like a Dodge style ball joint. They use a Thunderbird rack. Like there's no Mustang 2 at all in them, which is why I just refer to them as an IFS front end, which is independent front suspension. So I've installed a fair amount of IFS front ends in cars over the years, but I've never done one in a fat fendered Ford before. So I just read through the instructions to kind of, see what's all involved, because sometimes you don't need to take the front clip or the engine and transmission out. Well, usually you got to take the engine and transmission out, or at least the engine, but sometimes you don't need to take the front clip out. I've done like 49 to 54 Chevy cars. Left the front clip on, just had the engine out, and there's enough room that you can get in there and weld everything. This car, I think we're gonna pull the front clip off and the engine out, because we have to weld up. There's a couple holes in the frame, like factory holes for lightning purposes, and we gotta weld those up, and we gotta notch the frame rails themselves for coil clearance. Although, if we're running coilovers, we might not have to do that. Either way, I think it'll just be so much easier and faster to just pull the front end right off. At least, I mean, the engine's got to come out at a minimum, and I think we're going to have to fabricate new motor mounts as well. But to take the front end off, one of the things that we got to do that's unrelated to the front end on this car is the fender welting in here. This car was repainted at one point, and they painted over the fender welting. So we got new fender welting to go in there. So we got to take the fenders off anyways to change that. So we might as well just pull it right out. Pull everything apart, and then we just got a nice, clean, bare frame rail to work on. right, where's our drain plug? Right there. Ah, of course, we gotta get the drain plug from the top. I've already put it in the air. I'm gonna start with draining the radiator, obviously, as you can see. And while it's draining, we'll pull the front wheels off and then start spraying some penetrating oil on the fender bolts where they go into the cowl. That's a pretty common spot for them to want to seize and break and stuff because of the wheel mud. Cool, there we go. The debris and stuff from the wheels sprays up in there. Those are soaking in penetrating oil. I think our next step here is we're gonna pull the bumper off. We've got, this is the rad cradle support, so we can unbolt that, and then that will allow the front part of the front clip to be loose. Get those rear bolts out of the cowl, and then I think the whole front end will be loose. There's a couple other things we gotta do. Undo the rad hoses, obviously. We've got a bit of wiring to figure out and unhook. It doesn't look like there's any connections in there, but these wires are going to these signal lights, which we got to take off anyways. Those are like aftermarket signal lights instead of putting an 1157 bulb, or I guess it wouldn't be an 1157 because this is 6 volt. 1156 or 1154. 1154, I think, is the 6 volt equivalent. Anyways, we got a hood release cable here that we got to take off. It goes right into here, and that should be, there's some headlight wiring that's got to be in here somewhere too. We'll find that, some headlight wiring to take off, lower rad hoses, and then this front clip should come off. The hood we can probably leave right where it is. It's bolted to the firewall, and that's just, you know, one less thing that we have to take off and store somewhere. That's like one of the worst parts about taking cars apart, is they take up so much space once you get them apart. So we'll probably bring a pallet in, and we'll just start putting all this stuff on a pallet so that we can just store it out of the way in the meantime. Nope. Need the big guy. Oh yeah, there's all our signal light wiring there. So the green is for the right side. I don't know if we'll reuse this, but in case we do, remember that. Green is for the right side. In case you can't make that out, that means right signal. And left signal. All right, what else we got in here? We've got our marker light here, which is just twisted together, so that's easy. This socket right here, if you want to make these into signal lights, you just take this socket out. I don't know if it'll come out, probably not. It's probably seized in there. And you can go to the, just get aftermarket sockets that go in there that will take a dual filament bulb, and then you can use that as a marker light and as a signal light. All right, well, that's undone. That's easy. How convenient. Thank you to whoever did that. So scratch that inside. You can twist and tape that back together. There's plugs right here that come apart. So I've labeled them A, B, and C, and then the appropriate ones on the other side are labeled A, B, and C. I'm sure at one time they were like color coordinated, but they're all dirty and faded now. There is also some on this side, so I'll do the same thing, label them. That's A, B, C. This will be D, E, and F. And then there is a horn down in there too, which we can figure out. This side didn't come apart as nice. I ended up cutting these plugs to get them unhooked, and there's not any, like, I don't know if you can see it, there's no wiring case left on this. It's like completely deteriorated away. So I didn't feel bad cutting the plugs because we're probably not going to reuse those anyways. These are our horn wires here, and they come from a relay. So I've labeled the one that goes to the horn button, and we can just go ahead and snip it because we're going to be taking the steering box out, and currently the horn button wire comes out the bottom of the steering box. This other one I've got labeled, it was put together by the same guy that did the marker light on the other side, but I have labeled it as horn random, and I also put in there, like in quotations, power, because this might be the power wire that goes to the relay. There's a relay up here. My magnetic light does not stick on this copper rad. Imagine that. Yeah, we got this relay right here. So the green wire on there is the one that I think is the power wire that would power the relay up. And then the horn button is on the black wire. Our hood release, our wiring, our rad hoses, and our front rad sport are all undone. I just unbolted the splash pan to get access into here. And I'm just gonna use a ratchet, not the impact, to crack these loose because I don't wanna snap them off in there. Oh, that felt nice. Yeah, I think we got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts on each side. And then this front clip, I think, should be ready to come off. 4 of them came out. 3 came out really nice. One was a fighter. This one sounds like it's just crunching and spinning on the backside. These cars are really bad for rust in here. So I'm assuming that the back side of this is just rusted out. We're gonna have to cut this bolt head off. Look at that, we got one more bolt buried in here that I didn't even see. Broke. That's fine. Sometimes it's easier that way. All right, we're loose. Boom. How about that? Such good timing that John Asen walked in the door just as I was like cutting the last bolt. So Shannon was here, so we just picked the front end up and lifted it right off, put a drain bucket underneath it, and even caught most of the coolant that dribbled out. These lower rad hoses are really, really difficult to get in and out because you've only got like this much space. So I just left them on there and we just pulled it out essentially. This side, I had a couple bolts that I had to cut. We had to cut, which one? This one here. There is a nut on the back side that I can probably get off, but the problem was the bolt head on this side was like so beat down, I'm assuming from stone damage, that I couldn't get a socket on it. And I had to cut this one here, which you can see isn't even attached to the cowl. It's supposed to be in the cowl. And we had to cut this one here, so. Yeah, that's just, looks like it's got some filler in there, but we might be able to get this out. I don't know, these ones are still here. Worst case scenario, if we put it back together and we've got 1, 2, 3 here, and then we got that fourth one down here. Mind you, there's not really a lot there either. That's the trouble with old cars. Sometimes they're a little crusty. All right, well, it is pretty much the end of the day. So I'm gonna move this outside with the forklift and just spend the rest of the day doing a big cleanup. And then tomorrow we can jump back in here and front suspension maybe, pull the front end. Either the front suspension can come out or the engine can come out. We can probably do both tomorrow. Good morning. Friday morning. Last day of the week. I'm feeling it. Because I'm feeling it, I think I'm going to start with taking the engine out rather than the suspension, because I'm not limbered up enough yet to start crawling around on my hands and knees underneath there. Dressed for success today. Got my flathead shirt on. My friend Dave Disaster makes these shirts. Super cool shirts. He's got a 46 Ford Coupe as well. So yeah, let's pull this engine out. So this project could potentially escalate. Reason I'm saying that, so Felipes got a 8-inch Ford rear end that he wants to put in this car when we do the 4-link. An 8-inch uses a regular drive shaft. This car currently has a early Ford style torque tube, meaning that the transmission is not set up for a normal drive shaft. Now you can convert them to open drive. That's a lot of work and you need the parts to do it. He was talking about in the future he'd like to potentially upgrade to like a Chevy drivetrain, put a small block Chevy in this, which I know is gonna upset some of you people, but it's a hot rod. Anyways, what I'm getting at here is, so when we pull this engine out, to put this Mustang 2 style or IFS style front cross member in, it needs to go in like right here, which means we need to remove this cross member. That means we're not going to have engine mounts anymore. I think we're also going to have to remove this bracket as well for the steering box. We'll probably end up cutting the steering column maybe about here. When I cut these, I like to cut them so that I can reuse the original column still, and also set it up so that I can reuse the steering box in a potential different, like I want to leave enough room on there that I can like put another column tube or column shaft or U-joint or whatever you want back on there. I totally just lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. Okay, so if he wants to put a Chevrolet drivetrain in this in the future, this is probably a good opportunity to do it because I've got to make motor mounts and stuff anyways, and we got to figure out something to do with the transmission to make the transmission work with the 8-inch. So I'll see what he says about that. In the meantime, though, let's, I don't know, start unhooking stuff. It should be pretty straightforward to get this out. Obviously, we got some motor mounts down here. We're going to have to undo the exhaust, which will also have to be reconfigured because the current exhaust setup is going to be right where that cross member is. So again, this would be a good opportunity to just put the final drivetrain that he wants in here. We got some heater hoses to undo, some battery terminals, throttle linkage. We've got choke up here, and then there should be another throttle one for like your high idle over here. Fuel line. I don't think we'll pull the transmission out at this point. We'll just leave it in there. So we'll just undo the bell housing bolts from in here. I think we can probably get to most of them from this side of the car. A little bit of wiring. We got oil pressure here, temperature here, generator wiring, coil on the other side. So not a huge deal, and with the front clip off, so easy to work on. Another thing that crossed my mind, if he wants to put a small block Chevy in this and isn't going to run the flathead. Now, I don't know how good this flathead runs, but it looks like it would run okay. The old 32 over here, as you guys know, the regular viewers of this channel know, this engine is tired. It has minimal oil pressure, and it's a hybrid. It burns both gas and oil. It's definitely an oil burner. No one wants to drive behind me going down the road. So maybe that could be transplanted right there. That would be cool. Almost everything is undone. Motor mounts are undone. Exhaust is undone. Wiring harness is undone. Vacuum line for the wipers is undone. Fuel line is undone. Over on this side, all our throttle linkage and stuff is undone. Ground cable, starter cable. From here forward is ready to come out. I still have to undo the bell housing, and I think I said earlier I wasn't going to pull the floor out, and then I got looking at it and was like, why don't I just pull the floor out? It's got all new hardware. It's just a rubber floor mat. It'll make life a zillion times easier. Before I do that, though, I want to take some measurements before we pull this engine out in case we don't put this engine back in. I want to get some measurements from the firewall to the fan, the front of the fan, as well as our driveline angle. All right, let's go to the firewall, right where the wiring harness is. I'll make a mark there so that I know in the future that's where I measured to. And to our front of our fan, 30 1/8. Fan, 30 inches from here. I know it's 30 1/8, but 30 and 1/8 is basically the same thing. And our engine angle off the top of the air cleaner is 1.7 degrees sloped. Is that down? Yeah, 1.7 degrees sloped down. So that is with the car, you know, at this basic, you know, as long as we don't change the jack stand location and keep it here, it should be the same. If we are putting a different engine in, I'm just gonna write down on here 1.7. If we are putting a different engine in and we're putting a different rear end in, then it doesn't really matter. As long as wherever it fits well, as long as we put the new engine and the new transmission on like the correct angles, like so that they match each other, that's fine. 1.7 degrees down to the front. What I mean by as long as they're like on the same angle, when you put your engine in, say you got it, everyone likes to use the phrase 3 degrees, which doesn't really matter, but say you have it at 3 degrees, engine pointing up, you want your rear end at 3 degrees pointing up, just so that they're parallel, like on the same plane. That's all there is to driveline angles. So I usually like to put the engine wherever it fits best, because sometimes when you put it in at 3 degrees, it doesn't fit good. But if you put it in at like 2 degrees or 5 degrees, it fits better. So put your engine in at 5 degrees and just set your rear end at 5 degrees. That's all there is to it. Driveline angle, I think, is one of those things that a lot of people really overthink and overcomplicate. And then after that little rant, I've decided to change the measurement spot anyways, because I realized that this is just flopping around everywhere. That's not a very accurate or reliable spot. So I went off the top of the generator, and it's 2.8 degrees pointing up, which is basically your like 3 degrees that everyone likes to see. All right, I'm gonna pull the floor out now and undo the bell housing bolts, and then hopefully by that time it'll be lunchtime, which is my favorite part of the day. With the floor mat removed and I took the pedal pads off, you can see we have this huge toe board which comes out. This is one of my favorite features of early Fords. So I'm gonna blast these bolts out real quick, and then we'll pull this out, and then we have full access to the transmission and bell housing area. Oh, is this heater gonna be in the way? Maybe. Maybe this might not work because of the heater. There we go. Well, you gotta hold your tongue funny to get it out of there, but it will come out. Look how clean this transmission is. This looks like it was fairly recently put in. We got full access to everything now. So, yeah, just continuing on. I got the floor jack under the oil pan, or under the bell housing, I guess. I had to come underneath to take out 3 bolts, which, you know, isn't bad. I can't really complain when you can pull an entire engine out and you only have to go underneath the car to undo 3 bolts. That's a win. Change of plans with lifting the engine out. To lift the engine out, I have to move couple cars out to get the forklift in, my Roadster and the 32, and it started pouring out. It's raining like crazy. So rather than move the cars out and have them get wet so that I can bring the forklift in for 5 minutes and lift this motor up and move it back outside, I'm just gonna move on to a couple other things and wait for the rain to stop. We can start pulling this front suspension out now. So obviously we've got our 2 bolts at the very back for the wishbones, and we've got our U-bolts, which are underneath here, that hold the front spring in. But there's a couple other things we have to undo first. We've got a sway bar to undo. We've got a panhard bar to undo. We've got shocks to undo, and we've got brake lines. So I'm gonna start with the shocks and the brake lines and stuff like that first, and we'll do the U-bolts last. Reason being is with the jack holding the engine up, if I undo the U-bolts and let the front end down, the wishbones are gonna, the jack is going through the wishbone, so I won't be able to actually get it out anyways. But we can get all the other stuff undone, and in the meantime, hopefully it will stop raining. So in the amount of time it took me to undo both brake lines and unhook this shock lever right here, it stopped raining and the sun is out. So let's grab the forklift. Well, the sun was out. Oh yeah, the sun's still out. Let's grab the forklift and get this engine out of here. Cool. Just like that. That worked slick. Look at this transmission. It looks brand new. Unbelievable. I'm back on the suspension now. I just got the shotgun done and the sway bar. Just been using a pickle fork to get them apart. I took such careful care to get this apart nicely, only to find out that once I got it off, it's completely worn out. So, oh well. I don't like hacking stuff apart. I like unbolting it, even though we're not going to use this, because this is all perfectly good suspension still that somebody can use. This side's apart. I'm going to move on to the other side now, and then we've got our sway bar right here, or not our sway bar, our panhard bar bracket, which is also attached to the sway bar. I guess we could unbolt that. It's going to come off anyways. Shocks have 2 bolts on each side here. I'll probably undo the drag link from the pitman arm there, and then we'll deal with the steering box after. Probably going to take this exhaust crossover out because it's right in the way of where the transmission needs, or not the transmission, the cross member. Right where the cross member needs to go. And then the wishbones at the very back there, they just have a cup with 2 bolts that go up from the bottom. There we go. Just needed a little bit of some persuasion. There's the original front suspension on the ground. So I'm still gonna go back, and this is just like a little tin shield. I'll pull that off, and then I can get this sway bar out of here. We'll do the exhaust crossover. This, by the way, is your reference point for the axle center line, the center of these bump stops here, and they should unbolt. Maybe. They've been in there for a zillion years, so they'll probably fight me. And then, yeah, once we get the exhaust and this out of here, we'll go ahead and cut our steering box, and then unbolt it. This little shield I'm gonna hang on to because I think we might be able to make it work. There's gonna be a steering rack somewhere in here. I'm not exactly sure where yet, but this shield is, I think it helps with airflow for like so that the air goes through the radiator rather than around the radiator. So I'd like to keep it and reuse it if we can. If not, I'm sure it'll still be okay. We might have to trim it down a little bit. All right, that's off. We've got sway bar next. It's just 2 bolts. Okay, I think that's the last one. Yeah, sway bar assembly is off. Exhaust now. I'm sure if I undo this U-bolt right here, that'll just slip right apart, right? Isn't that how those slip joints work? Yeah, right. I think we're gonna have to cut that with the Sawzall. So this didn't come apart, but this end that I didn't take the U-bolt off of, it fell right apart. Steering box, I guess, is all that's left. So a couple things to keep in mind with the steering box. We want to cut this low, because we can always trim it higher if we need to, and sometimes having it lower is better, because if we cut it up here, then our U-joint that we're going to put on this column to connect to the rack is going to start from up here and have an angle going down like that. It's going to hook up about here. But if we cut it closer to the bottom, it'll be lower, and then that allows our steering shaft that we put in there is going to be much lower to clear, like motor mounts, exhaust, stuff like that. But we don't want to cut it too low, because if we cut it too low, then this steering box is pretty much like useless for somebody else. These steering boxes, I like to use them in hot rods. My Model A Roadster, for example, has one of these steering boxes in it, and they work really nice. I've got it turned on its side and set up as side steer, but anyway, that's a topic for another day. But yeah, if we can cut it, I don't know, probably, you know what, let's just go right about here. So when we cut this, what happened? Oh, there we go. When we cut this, it's going to have the shaft and the outer tube, the steering column and then the steering shaft. We need probably about that much of the shaft exposed. So where I've cut it right here, we're going to have to cut the column tube up like maybe another inch, but we'll worry about that later. All right, it's cut. Purists, now is your time to chime in and let me know in the comments about how I have destroyed this car. We ruined it, because this is the point of no return now. All right, I'm gonna unbolt the rest of the steering box from this bracket right here. And that's pretty much it for teardown. I guess we could take these brake lines off. I wonder if it'd be easier just to take this bracket right off the frame, because we're gonna have to do that anyways. We'll try this one more time. It's just really hard to get on the back of this bolt. There we go. I think my gun went dead too. Okay, I think that's it. Steering box, almost undone. There we go. And then undo the horn. Boom. Brake lines. Ah, what size is that? Smaller than what I got. There we go, 7/16. Brake lines are out of the way. All right, there we go. Our teardown is done. Like pretty much done. It's done as far as this video is gonna go. In the next video, we're gonna pick up where we've left off here and start by removing this cross member here, removing the steering box mount, and that's just gonna be like removing factory frame rivets to get this out. Probably, I don't know, it might come out. Sometimes you gotta cut these cross members to actually get them out, but this one looks like it should come out through the top, so that'll make things a little bit easier. Before I do that, I'm gonna take a little bit of time and clean and degrease this frame, but I'm not gonna bore you guys with the details of that. You guys don't need to watch me scrub grease off of a frame. So anyways, that's where we're gonna end this video here. Teardown on 46 Ford Coupe. Video 2 coming out next. Mustang 2 front end, IFS front end, however you wanna call it, going back in. So thanks everybody for watching. Make sure to leave me a comment and let me know, did I destroy this car or am I improving this car? I don't know. If it was my car, I would have just dropped the axle. Well, I mean, you guys all saw the videos on the 47 Ford sedan I had. That's what I would do. That being said, when you put the IFS front ends in them, they do drive really, really nice. And all these parts here they're gonna go on to make awesome hot rod parts. That's one thing I cannot stress enough. If you are street rodding a car, if you're putting all modern stuff in it, this old stuff, do not throw it away. This is great, valuable hot rod parts. These brakes right here, the exact same brakes that are on my 32 Ford. That steering box we just cut out, there's one right there. Oh, it's not maybe the best view of it. There we go, how about that? That's one of those steering boxes right there. This is all valuable hot rod parts, traditional hot rod parts. These wishbones can get used. Spindles, I got a set of spindles right there. Some cool old chromed ones. Those are the same era spindles as these. So please do not throw this stuff out. Do not throw it in the scrap bin. It's good hot rod parts. Anyways, thanks for watching. See you later.